Good evening. I'd like to call our board meeting to order and ask the treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker.
Present.
Mr. Brown. Here. Vice President Cole.
Here.
Ms. Gibbs. Here. Ms. Hudson. Mr. Peretti. Here. Ms. Reyes. Here. You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I'd like to welcome the South High School Junior ROTC Bulldog Battalion and Commander Rico Felix. The battalion will present the colors this evening. Please be upstanding.
Freestand. Forward.
Thank you. And now I'd like to ask students from our Spanish Immersion Academy to recite the pledge in English and in Spanish.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prometo fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Order. Forward. Post. Left. Face. Forward. Forward. Left. Left. Left.
You may be seated. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our students from CSIA for being here, and I'd also like to thank the Bulldog Battalion and Commander Rico Felix. We will hear again from CSIA students in just a little bit.
Very little flower.
Tú hablas primero, luego los niños.
Estoy un poquito equivocada. Okay.
I'd like to acknowledge actually we're going to hear from them right now. I'd like to acknowledge the principal of CSIA. The floor is yours, Principal.
Hi. Thank you so much. Buenas noches y gracias por esa oportunidad para los alumnos de Columbus Spanish Immersion. I want to thank you so much for letting our students come and have this opportunity to present to you. And just thank the Columbus City Schools and the Board of Education for an opportunity for children to have and participate in immersion education. It is a great, great opportunity. I welcome anyone that would like to come and visit us to see what we're doing. And President Baker and members of the board, I did give you a fact sheet that you can review at your leisure, just so that you can see a little bit more about our school. So thank you. And the kids are going to go now.
En la cuna de San José, yo compré una guitarra, ta, 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 ta,
Is that it, Principal? We just get one song? Do they have time to pose for a photograph with the board? Absolutely. If you could have them stand right here. Colleagues?
I think the song was about musical instruments and going to a shop buying different musical instruments. Okay. I think the song is about you going to a place buy out wait. Yeah, you're right. And buying different instruments.
Thank you. Thanks.
Here, we'll do a couple of big pictures. 1, 2, 3, one more. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you all for being here, CSIA staff and students. We appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. All right, so I'd like to move on with the agenda. And the next thing I would like to do is, assuming there's no objection from my colleagues as we start this meeting, I'd like to take time for a quick moment of silence in light of recent violence throughout our country, especially in light of what just happened in Las Vegas. And as we do that, I'd like to call on all elected officials and community leaders everywhere to stand up to hatred and to engage with one another in pursuit of tolerance and solutions. Hatred is based on fear, and fear is based on ignorance. One of the reasons why education is so very important. Love is still the strongest force in the world. A moment of silence. Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, let's then move on, and I'll briefly read through the agenda prior to its adoption. We're going to have a recognition of National Hispanic Heritage Month, another recognition of National Hispanic Heritage Month, after which we will hear from our superintendent, treasurer, and internal auditor. After taking public comment, the board will then consider its consent agenda. After that, we will have a special recognition, and then we will recess into executive session. We will adjourn from executive session at the end of the meeting without returning to these chambers. So having said that, the chair will now entertain a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Vice President Cole,
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs,
Yes.
Ms. Hudson,
Yes.
Mr. Peretti,
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The Board of Education celebrates the full diversity of our district and of this city, and we honor those who every day are committed to serving all of our students and their families. So tonight, we begin our meeting with two important recognitions that reflect our board's dedication to those ideals. The first, an appreciation and celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month. We're in the second half of this special observance, which runs September 15th through October 15th and honors the histories, cultures, and contributions of those in our community whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. Roughly 6,000 of our students, about 12%, identify as Hispanic. And at our highly recognized Columbus Spanish Immersion Academy, about half of the students enrolled who are learning through a dual language learning environment identify as Hispanic. And so allow me again to thank the students and staff from CSIA and their principal, Katie Myers. I'd now like to call on my colleague, Board Member Reyes, to say a few words. Board Member Reyes?
Thank you, President Baker. People take pride in many aspects of their identity: family, work, friends, religious worship. All these things give people a great sense of accomplishment. Have you ever considered the pride that comes from saving another person's life? People of various ethnic backgrounds can suffer from a variety of common debilitating conditions related to blood disorders. These disorders can require regular blood transfusions to alleviate pain and continue to allow the individuals to live. Historically, there is a higher incidence of certain diseases and conditions in the Hispanic population, including blood disorders, cardiovascular disease, organ transplant, and certain types of cancer. As an individual of Hispanic background, we may have the unique ability to help patients with special needs through blood donation. Although all blood types are important, O-negative blood is especially valued. It is a universal red blood cell, which means a patient of any blood type can receive type O negative red blood cells in an emergency situation. Due to the diversity of its uses, type O blood is routinely in short supply and in high demand for hospitals. Hispanics have higher number of type O positive blood type than any other population, creating a unique opportunity for giving. Almost 60% of Hispanic Americans have type O blood. As a whole, nationally, only 45% of the population has type O. Because of this significant difference, recruiting new Latino donors is particularly important. It is really simple to do. It takes about an hour of your time to help save up to 3 lives. That means that you can take pride in knowing you may have helped a child with a blood disorder play with his friends, a mother give birth to a child, or a grandparent spend more time with loved ones. Back in 2013, Dr. Samuel Bentantes and Henry Guzman were thinking of how Hispanics and those in Columbus could give Hispanic Heritage Month some additional meaning. Cultural events are plentiful during Hispanic Heritage Month, but not as a platform for giving back. By partnering with the Red Cross to donate blood, Hispanics will continue celebrating, but with an added meaning, by saving lives through blood donations. A Latino Blood Drive committee was organized to start working on this important initiative to help spread the word about the importance of donating blood and help in recruiting donors. By increasing the number of Latino blood donors, we can make a significant contribution to fellow Americans who require blood and more now during Hispanic Heritage Month. Today, we can celebrate our heritage and honor it by saving a life. From September 15th through October 15th, our great nation observes a particular month in festivities celebrating the independence of a few of our beloved Latino countries, as well as historical moments that mark a pattern in the fabric of the Hispanic legacy in the history of the United States. This month, we honor this legacy by patriotism, pride, and love for our people and country, giving life and donating blood to the Red Cross. To the Ohio Commission on Hispanic Latino Affairs, a partnership with the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC Columbus chapter, we have marked a great milestone in history. Since 2013, they have achieved 18 goals, collecting 7 units to date, 91 total units. And in 2017, they added 5 new blood drives, 2 during Hispanic Heritage Month, and 1 during the observation dedicated to our civil rights and grassroots activist, Cesar Chavez. Here today, I have 2 individuals that were involved in the planning of this. Both are distinguished veterans of our armed forces, Mr. John Ramos and Henry Guzman. As they make it to the podium, I'd like to talk a little bit about Mr. Henry Guzman, who is one of my heroes. He's a native of Villalba, Puerto Rico, and is raised in Youngstown, Ohio. He is a U.S. Army veteran who earned a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star for valor for his service in Vietnam. And he's here to share his story as to the importance of giving blood. John and Henry, if you could come to the podium, please.
Thank you, Ramona, Mr. President, and members of the board. It's indeed an honor for me to be here this afternoon to speak to you about the importance of blood donations in this country. You probably cannot help but notice what's been happening in this country over the past few days with the horrific event that occurred in Las Vegas, there was an immediate call for blood. And as Ramona rightly mentioned, O negative is the universal blood type. Again, it can be given to anyone regardless of their own blood type and without any medical complications. As a matter of fact, those with O negative blood type were pushed up to the front of the line at Vegas for their blood donation. I personally became involved with this effort. I am on the board of the American Red Cross. I'm a disaster team member, also responding to local disasters, and I'm also available for national deployment. I think it's important for all of us as citizens to look within ourselves to see what we can do individually to assist others in need. We never will know when a catastrophe will occur in our own community. I can tell you from a personal level that it's a passion for me. During the war in Vietnam, I was personally wounded. I was shot, spent 11 months in a hospital from that war. I received a lot of blood. If it wasn't for the blood donations that I had or the blood that I received plus plasma, I probably would not be here today. And probably would not many of my fellow veterans who served in that conflict. So to me, it's a personal thing. It's personal because I received it, but it's also personal because you never will know when that blood will be needed for a member of your family or your friend or your neighbor. So I urge you today to commit yourselves to donating blood. This particular Thursday from 6 a.m. to 11:15 p.m., there will be a telethon on Channel 4, of which I will be there answering the phone. And there is still time for volunteers to answer the phone on that given day. That particular one is for the disaster in Puerto Rico. As you well know, I was born, well, you might have not known, I was born in Puerto Rico, came here as a 5-year-old, not speaking the English language. I remember going to Youngstown Public Schools and the teachers demanding then that I forget about the Spanish because I would never need it again because you are in America now. And so I said, really? And I remember then going on to college and the teachers said, you know, you need a foreign language in order to graduate. And I said to them, well, you know that obviously you're not communicating with the schools because they wanted me to forget it. Anyway, I did test out of the Spanish language because my father insisted that I maintain the Spanish language. It was important to him, and it was important to our family. I went on and I served on the Youngstown School Board. I was the first elected school board member back in the 80s in Ohio. And so I only say this because we have the ability as leaders to open the door for those behind us. So while I have achieved these different levels, I will never forget that there are many people behind us still wanting to get through these doors. So I encourage each one of you to look around and to help those in need. And you'll never know when that need will hit you right at your front door. So I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I'm going to let my colleague John Ramos also speak because he's on the committee that helped put this effort together. And my personal goal and the goal of the committee is to take this initiative nationwide. Can you imagine if the Latinos in this country all of a sudden start giving blood, start saving lives, how we will change the way the people look at us? And in a different way, they'll look at us as a community of giving. We're giving back, we're saving lives. Every pint of blood saves 3 lives. So let's continue to do that, and thank you very much for your attention today.
Good afternoon, Chair and the board. I have strong and big shoes to follow at this moment. I do not know what to say. Henry covered everything. But other than that, I would just like to say things have changed in these last 10 years or so. Our population keeps growing in Columbus. And in recent events with the hurricane in Puerto Rico, I've been advocating for Columbus to my family and my friends so they could come here and be part of our culture, of our Buckeye culture, correct? So we call ourselves Buckeye Ricans, I believe, right? And so we embrace the Buckeyes and the culture of the Ohio, and we feel that the same thing should be with us, embrace our culture. Things have changed. There's more, a bigger population, and there's things happening that we wish that we could change. This is one of the ways we are going to change the way people look at us during Hispanic Heritage Month, or even during Cinco de Mayo, right? So the thing is, we're going to flip this over, and we're going to show them how productive we are and how we are passionate about our culture, but not only that, about our great nation. Okay, thank you.
So I don't want it to be left unsaid. I know John didn't announce his title, but John has served as the chair of the LULAC Columbus chapter and has been instrumental in the last 3 or 4 drives for Puerto Rico relief for the hurricane. Though they're both representing Puerto Rico, my ancestry is Mexican-American, and as you know, Mexico also has and continues to experience earthquakes. I know they're not in the news right now because, unfortunately, we're dealing with other catastrophes in this nation. But I myself had a friend whose nephew was walking out of the school building that collapsed, where he saw 22 of his alumnus perish, and he was only 15 years old, and he's dealing with that trauma. So sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because he's really scared, and that's what our kids are dealing with. And I'm really proud to be a contributor. I gave blood this last weekend, and I encourage all of you not only to give blood, but to give of yourselves in the things that we're dealing with today in this country. So thank you for the opportunity to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Reyes. Thank you, Mr. Guzman, Mr. Ramos. Thank you very much for being here this evening, distinguished leaders from our community. Next, we turn our attentions to an organization that helps prepare young people for the real world and empowers many of our students to own their economic success. Junior Achievement is one of our city's largest organizations dedicated to educating students about entrepreneurship and financial literacy. I'll ask Junior Achievement of Central Ohio President Mike Davis to step forward with a special honor for someone who is truly committed to serving our students and their families. Good evening.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, board members, Superintendent Good, and guests. We're very honored to be here this evening to, first of all, thank you for all the support that Columbus City Schools, the leadership, the teachers, the curriculum folks have provided in partnership with Junior Achievement. We're very grateful. The specific purpose of our being here this evening is on behalf of the 25,200 plus students that we engage every year in 18 counties and 48 school districts. We have an event each year where we recognize business leaders and education leaders and volunteer leaders. And this year, on behalf of those thousands of students and thousands of volunteers, we're here to recognize Dr. Good as our Educator of the Year here at Junior Achievement of Central Ohio. So thank you, Dr. Good. Dr. Good has both inspired and challenged and partnered with us and the employees and the leadership of Columbus City Schools to not only get better for the students of Columbus City Schools, but throughout our region and at all levels of education in our community. And so we're incredibly grateful to you personally. We're incredibly grateful to the school board for your leadership and support, the countless administrative leaders that are engaged with us to implement these programs, the hundreds of students and the literally more than 10,000 students this year that will be engaged with Junior Achievement here in Columbus City Schools. So we're incredibly grateful to you, both individually, collectively as a leadership group, and collectively as the Columbus City Schools system. And so we'll do a formal presentation at our Hall of Fame event on November 16th in the evening, but we wanted to present Dr. Good with this. I'm trying not to get any smudges on it, Dr. Good. but this award, the award for Educator of the Year on behalf of the more than 1,000 teachers, countless administrators. We want to recognize you for the excellence of your work, sir. So thank you very much.
Board members, let's join them for the photo. Now, we tried to keep that a secret. Okay. It's incredibly hard to keep a secret in an organization with 8,000 employees, but I think we did it. So I want to thank Mr. Davis for being here tonight. I want to thank you and your staff and board for the partnership. It's an incredibly effective and rewarding partnership. I want to thank all of our staff who are engaged in that, for all the hard work that you do to make sure that our students are succeeding every day. And we'll look forward to seeing you on November 16th at your Hall of Fame event. Thank you. Let's move on now, and we are now going to hear from our... Oh, perfect. Okay. That'll be on the agenda later. We'll all vote for that. All right, Mr. Superintendent, that leaves us, I believe, to your report.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Junior Achievement and certainly Mike Davis representing them this evening. It has been a very fruitful partnership. I'm very much looking forward to Future City or Fiscal City. I always get it wrong, but and continuing that work and really evolving it so that it supports all students regardless of their ability or their origin and their language. So something we've shared. And so I remain committed to that. And also thanks to Mr. Guzman and Mr. Ramos for presenting this evening. It's interesting when different voices and different instruments play in harmony together, the notes in different octaves follow a rhythm and a beat, and they produce sounds that can oftentimes be moving and even inspirational. I think the same can be said for our district. When the different sectors of our enterprise, like Junior Achievement, work in harmony, often with others in the community, that's when we're most impactful in serving our students and their families. And I think this was most evident last week when our academic services and our business operation teams worked flawlessly in harmony to safely and effectively implement our Beat the Heat protocols. We had near record high temperatures for late September for several days in a row, creating true concern in our older buildings without full air conditioning. And it forced our district to take the very rare step of twice dismissing students early to avoid that hot afternoon condition in the buildings. And at the building levels, our principals and the teachers made sure that those shortened days were still filled with very productive learning. Our custodial services asked custodians to report to work early to open windows and turn on fans to get the air circulating. The delivery services team kept schools fully stocked with water. Our food services department made sure all the students had the chance to eat breakfast and lunch before going home. The communications office kept families well informed, including updates on the new mobile app, and our accountability experts tracked student attendance to make sure they received proper credit for the day, even if it was a slight bit shorter. And most impressive of all, our transportation team safely delivered students back to their bus stops. Then, adding to those harmonized efforts were our community partners from the city, Columbus Rec and Parks, the YMCA, and our Latchkey programs all opened early and offered additional programming to keep students safe, engaged, and cool for the extra time in the afternoon. The decision to dismiss school early is a very tough one for me because I want our students to be in school all the time, longer than the regular day if I could. But the decision to dismiss early was only possible because of all of these teams and partners who worked in harmony, and I thank them. And of course, with all this talk of harmony, I have to mention the exceptional performances of our marching bands at this past weekend's 5th annual Columbus City Schools Marching Band Invitational. 15 performances, 15 groups of young men and women playing and moving in harmony, led by 15 dedicated teachers. A special thank you to the self-proclaimed Band Geek for Life, Betty Hill, for organizing this annual celebration of music. Because we value music education and the lessons learned from being part of a performing group, I had the privilege to announce a special $2,000 grant given to each of the marching bands in the Invitational that will help them pay for new equipment or travel to special appearances. And soon we'll post on our website the routines of every band so everyone can see just how well each performed. And finally, tonight I want to offer the board 3 presentations to showcase how our district is better served when we look for ways to harmonize our efforts with outside partners. 2 of these items are on your voting agenda tonight. In just a moment, I'll ask our Director of Safety to provide some comments and reactions to the horrific incident in Las Vegas and our conversations about it with the Columbus Police. Also, we'll provide insight into our continued partnership with CODA to give our older students access to bus passes and free transportation to valuable educational and workforce opportunities. But first, I want to ask our Technology Director, Michelle Van Dyke, and our partners at the City of Columbus to come to the podium to talk about an innovative collaboration that will improve our information sharing and phone services.
All right, thank you. President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board. As Dr. Good just stated, we're super excited tonight to bring forth the Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Columbus. We brought to you in June a resolution to look at this partnership and see if it's something that we wanted to engage in. We've spent very much every day of a whole year going through different scenarios. We've done research, we've had meetings, we've done site visits, we've really looked at how that we can come together to make this work for the district. And we do feel that this is a solution that will take advantage of not only the resources that we have collectively, but it will also engage our resources here in the district to have the phone system that we've all been waiting for sure. So tonight, the acceptance of this MOU would just be that. We will be bringing forth lots of legislation as we move through the project. Will be the first, obviously the first year will be a lot of equipment, licensing, new telephones. And the first year of this, or the first phase of this project, is to take the Centrex lines out of the district. So we will have 3,500 brand new phone lines with brand new telephones capable of doing a lot more than just picking up the phone and sometimes getting a dial tone and sometimes not. So we're really excited. The district has really been waiting for this for probably every bit of 16 years that I've been here. So it's an exciting move for us. In your board legislation tonight is the MOU, and it is very thorough. It's a very long MOU, took a lot of time to put together. So I think the details tell you about everything you would want to know about service level agreements, who will be doing what. Obviously, this is a big undertaking. We have 3,500 current lines for the first phase, and then the second phase, as we move through, we'll be adding telephones to all of the building classrooms that don't currently have a phone, which is something that I know has been asked for, again, for every single day that I've been here. So with that, I would like to just, go go through the solutions. Here, it's right here, sorry. The solution overview, there we go. Talk a little bit about the solution overview, just so we keep it fresh in our mind. And like I said, when we bring back legislation, we'll absolutely be bringing back any kind of updates to the board that you want to hear. And I think it'll get more exciting as we get phones on the desks and we can actually call in maybe and show you how those are working. So again, the solution is for us to have a world-class telephone system for the entire district, not just for administration, but actually down to the classrooms. And eventually this will translate into new technology into the classrooms. And again, this is a solution that will take all the resources that we're currently using here along with the city, and we'll move on to the features. You all need to introduce yourselves. I'm very sorry about that.
Okay, my name is Misty Cole, and I actually manage the Project Management Office for the City of Columbus Department of Technology.
And I'm Pam O'Grady, Deputy Director for the Department of Technology.
So as Michelle mentioned, the new phone system will bring a lot of neat features to you all that you don't currently have today. And some of them are listed, the voicemail to email, so someone can call you and you can actually view the content of the voicemail via email, text to speech. Someone can text you and it will send a voicemail message to your line. Plug and play, so we have phone number mobility. So whenever a teacher moves or changes a classroom, unplug the phone, take it to the new location and plug it in, plug and play. The ability to lock down the phones to only call 911 during emergency situations. Conferencing, paging, caller ID. And all of the phone systems will be fully redundant connections between the city and the Columbus City Schools, data centers, tongue-tied there. So you don't have to worry about outages. The systems are fully redundant. Nightly backups of your phone data, any configurations that are done to the phones, to the servers, voicemails, greetings, all of that will be backed up each evening, so you don't have to worry about losing that information or that data. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you for this brief presentation. And you may not be able to answer this now, but has this system been tested for emergencies, crisis, hurricane, tornadoes, any natural disasters?
So we are actually, you all be appending the infrastructure of the City of Columbus, and we have fully redundant, we have disaster recovery plans in place. All of that's been covered. So yes, you will be a part of that infrastructure.
Okay.
Board Member Brown?
Has the city or city council already acted on the MOU that we're acting on tonight?
We are actually, after we have passed legislation with you all, legislation will be presented to the City of Columbus City Council. So later this month, we actually are planning to present that legislation to City Council. We have briefed them, so they are aware that the legislation is coming down the pike. So everyone's aware.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from board members? Superintendent?
Thank you so much for I know it was a brief presentation, and we'll see you again. Our intent is to monthly provide the board updates, and again, once we have phones in place, start showing you some of those features, and maybe we can even utilize those for some of our weekly conference calls, or even maybe during the board meetings. So we want to keep you apprised of every step along the way. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we may have one more question from Board Member Peretti.
People on the ground coordinating with the city of Columbus, and what sort of like physical infrastructure are we sort of, how is this physically sort of going to work out? Like, is there going to be updates and capital improvements that we're going to have to continuously? Is it a joint venture with the city? And what should we expect as a district, I guess?
President Baker to Board Member Peretti, Actually, it's very detailed in the MOU, but we will pretty much, the infrastructure, we're purchasing the equipment as a district, so we will own the equipment. It will be housed in the data centers at the City of Columbus, so they will manage the infrastructure side. We, as a district, these phones actually are a computer now. It's not your regular telephone. So we have 30 field techs out in the buildings every day. So they will be the first line of training and calling our support line 8425 if you have a phone, desk phone issue. And then we do have all kinds of SLAs built into the MOU so that we have capability to call 24/7, those kind of things. If there's an issue district-wide, obviously they will know from the district or from the data center side. But yeah, like I said, it's pretty extensive what we've done with the duties that we're going to share. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for being here this evening.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Superintendent?
Thank you. Well, next we want to offer the board additional information as we seek to renew and approve our agreement with CODA on transporting students in lieu of using our bus fleet. CODA does so at a discount to the district, so I'll ask our Chief Operating Officer, Maurice Oldham, to introduce his team to share more.
Good evening, President Baker, board members, Dr. Good. I'd like to ask Executive Director Steve McElroy to come up and talk about the CODA passes.
Good afternoon, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board, Superintendent Good. Columbus City Schools has another opportunity to provide CODA passes to students in the 11th and 12th grades who attend their internship activities. Also, CCS is able to provide community and private students who reside in the district with passes in lieu of YOLA bus transportation. Columbus City Schools is required to provide transportation to community and private schools, thus providing bus passes to those students who are eligible but impractical can be a cost savings to the district. The cost per ride is the same as the past 2 years, which is $1.15 for a fixed bus route. This agreement gives CCS a 42.5% discount on passes since the standard fare is $2. This is important because the standard fare of $2 only allows a rider 2 hours between transfers when the CCS rate has no limit between routes. I mention this because many students require more than 2 hours at their internships. Therefore, this is also a cost savings to the district. In FY17, the total number of swipes reported by CODA was over 250,000 swipes, at a cost to the district for approximately $293,000. In FY18, the Transportation Department has issued over 1,600 passes to this date. The Transportation Department also has 31-day and 7-day passes, which are temporary use for students. We have decided to eliminate the 31-day passes and keep a small amount of 7-day passes for homeless students to use. Per the McKinney-Vento Act, Columbus City Schools is required to offer transportation to homeless students. Therefore, these temporary passes allow the students a way to and from school, while the Transportation Department determines if and how these students will be routed on a yellow bus. In order for the Transportation Department to offer CODA passes to juniors and seniors, we work directly with high school administrators to get parental or guardian approval for their students to receive these passes. Parents or guardians are required to complete a parent request form. Once signed by a parent or guardian and approved by the administration, the student is issued a CODA pass. Lastly, these passes have restricted hours of ridership between 5:30 a.m. and 8 p.m., Monday through Friday. These passes cannot be used on weekends, national holidays, days when CCS is not in session, and a few other special dates like Red, White, and Boom. I must take an opportunity, since I'm at the mic, to give a shout out to all of our bus drivers, bus aides, compound supervisors, and others who provide excellent service to the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future, our children. I would like to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions from board members?
Thank you so much. Thank you. My apologies, Mr. President. Thank you, sir, so much for this presentation. I'm excited to hear about the savings that we've been able to procure as per this agreement for our students. I know that this has been a concern of ours for several years now, to ensure that our kids can affordably access transportation. Are there further steps we're taking to continue this relationship with CODA to kind of grow more opportunities for our students?
President Baker, Vice President Cole, yes, sir. We are working towards meeting with CODA on a standard basis to discuss the current process and look for additional ways to save money and also to provide better services for our students to get to their internships and other ways to provide transportation for our charter school students also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hudson.
Oh, thank you, President Baker. Thank you very much for the presentation, and I'm glad we continue to work on this. I was wondering, and I talked to Superintendent Good about this as well, you know, CODA is quite kind of neck deep in the Smart Cities program. How is Columbus City Schools being integrated into that, given that we have an even larger fleet and a pretty big set of the transportation needs of the city?
President Baker, Board Member Hudson. In the infrastructure, Mr. McElroy and myself, we both attend or sit on committees for the Smart City as well. The committee that we on is for the electrification, electrical vehicles. The infrastructure is currently being built. It's a process, it's a conversation we meet bi-weekly. For us, the CODA, the infrastructure, some of the things they're looking at in the smart cities are ways that tie into lights turning turning green so buses can transport more efficient. And so at the table, one of the things we talk about with the group is how can we make that tie into our school buses? So it's still in the conversation stages, but those are things that we're looking at. The other thing in the smart city that's been looked at are electric vehicles, not only from buses. Buses are a little challenging. Still a lot of conversation needs to take place, only because several things is happening with the electrical buses. One, in some buses, you got how many miles can they drive? And consider we're citywide, we want to make sure the buses can be able to support that. Secondly, electrical buses are almost double the cost of a current yellow bus. And then also, currently, as anything that's new, the battery replacement for electrical buses, tremendous cost, anywhere almost up to $50,000 per change of a battery. So we're still having those conversations, looking at ways we can make it more effective and efficient. We partnered with Smart Columbus, and we actually used one of our sites back in July where a company out of Canada brought one of the electrical buses down. And so we was able to show it and be one of the hosts of that event, and that went very well. But again, we're at the table, we're constantly having those conversations on ways we can integrate, and also how do we make our yellow buses tie into the system. So it's a conversation that's ongoing, and looking at creative ways and discussion how we can make it work in our favor.
Great news, thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Gibbs.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that update. It's taken us a while to get there with CODA, and it's a continual work in progress to make sure we have that fine balance of, work and support for our students. Can you speak to, in terms of CODA, how are we keeping pace with where they're planning to go? In a few years, we'll be looking at our facilities master plan again, and where we're going to close buildings and where we may build new ones. But the bus routes may or may not be in that same, going the same way we're going. Do you know where they are in their strategic plan or where they're planning to expand? And are we involved in those talks to make sure we know where the city is growing, and not only for where our students may go to school, but for internship opportunities that may open up that our kids may then have access to because a bus line now goes there?
President Baker, Board Member Gibbs, thank you for the question. Yes, we've, in a number of levels, have been working with CODA to gather that information. We've asked them in this past fiscal year when they did have route changes to inform us of those route changes so we can communicate those changes to our students. So CODA did give us that information. That information was provided at the building level, so we ensured that our students knew the changes and were ready for the changes, so it seemed to be a very good transition. Moving forward, we do plan to also continue to have these discussions with CODA if routes change or if they have a new approach to transportation, so we would definitely be at the table and be part of that decision-making process.
Okay, I'm still trying to figure out the route changes. I mean, they might as well be in Mandarin, you know, because some long-time numbers have changed, but we haven't lost students in the process, and we were able to bring them along on that.
So two things. One, from a personal matter, my mother, who is probably watching right now or listening, so she's probably embarrassed I'm mentioning her right now, but is 85 years old and rides CODA. And she rides mainstream. So we're definitely engaged from a personal level to make sure that the people that have ADA concerns are also addressed at the Columbus City Schools level, et cetera. And also, from a building perspective, again, we're making sure that this information is communicated to our students and staff, because we do have some staff that ride bus to school to work also. That's communicated the best way we can to ensure that the transition is done and done effectively.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? Mr. McElroy? Mr. McElroy, thank you. Mr. Oldham, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Superintendent?
Finally, I'd like to take a brief moment to reemphasize our district's commitment to keeping students and staff safe. The incident in Las Vegas forced us all to take pause, hug our loved ones a little tighter, and then reflect on what we can do to prevent such a tragedy. As you may have read in the paper today, one of our social studies teachers was at the concert. He was knocked to the ground during the confusion, but was not injured. He did make it back home yesterday. We're very thankful for his safe return, and we're thankful for the daily work of our safety and security team and our partners at the Columbus Division of Police for helping us keep all of our students and staff safe. So I'm going to ask Director Chris Ward to briefly share an update on his conversations over the past day and a half with the Columbus Police and an update of our building level drills that keep safety at the forefront of our mission.
All right. Well, good evening, President Baker, Vice President Gold, members of the board. I just want to quickly give you an update on the Safety and Security Department and work that we are doing to keep our students and staff safe, and also in the wake of the tragic event that took place in Las Vegas this past Sunday. But before I do, I'd like to express our deepest thoughts and prayers to the victims and the families who are dealing with this horrific tragedy. You know, again, we hope that we would never see anything like this. We've experienced it in Las Vegas, but we hope that Columbus City Schools and the city of Columbus will never, ever experience this type of tragedy. So for this year, like every year, our number one priority is keeping our students and staff safe district-wide. We always look for the best ways to maintain a safe and secure learning environment. And while the world around us doesn't always give us the feeling of being safe, school systems, and Columbus City Schools in particular, still remains the safest place for our students to be throughout the school day. Over the past few years, our department, along with several other internal and external partners, have worked very hard putting together an emergency response protocol to ensure the best possible outcomes during emergency situations. These partners include Federal Emergency Management Agencies, Homeland Security, the Columbus Police and Fire Department, Public Health, Ohio Department of Education, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and several other local support agencies. As a result of this collaborative effort, we've created an all-hazards emergency operations plan for Columbus City Schools. The EOP outlines step-by-step instructions on what to do in the midst of an emergency situation. Each school has a copy of the EOP, and it can also be found on the district CCSNet. Another tool that we have at the building level is called a school safety plan. And the school safety plan is designed to make sure that each school has their own individual plan for their particular school. This plan includes a safety plan that outlines all the hazards that a school may experience throughout the school day, floor map, aerial map, building contact sheets, as well as a signature page. And the signature page includes signatures from the superintendent, the building principal, fire department representative, police department representative, parent, as well as teachers. The plan is also updated every year, and it also must pass the inspection of ODE and Homeland Security. When we look at our evening events, our football games and basketball games, we review the schedule each week to ensure that there's appropriate administrative, security, and police coverage at every game. We also check to see if there's anything that has taken place throughout the week that could potentially affect that activity taking place at that particular school. We also communicate on a constant basis with the Columbus Police Department, as well as the City of Columbus APPS program. And if you're not familiar with the APPS program, it's the Application for Purpose, Pride, and Success. And we touch base with them at least once a week to talk about specific issues, concerns, violence in the community, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and have a vision on how we want to deal with those particular issues as they arise. We also have a team of individuals who make themselves available around the clock to assist when we've learned of violent acts in the community, such as homicides and shootings. And those things, of course, we try to look for that information which could potentially have a negative effect on our school the next day. And so when these things are taking place, whether it's the weekend, whether it's the holiday, evening hours, we all get together, we communicate with one another. We're on social media, we're on Facebook, we're reaching out to district staff, to district employees, as well as our senior leadership team to ensure that number one, there's an open line of communication, and so that we have a plan for the next day. When we look at what happened in Las Vegas just the other day, there's no way that we can control something like that from happening. But we can control how we respond to such emergencies. Emergency drills have now become a staple in our schools. We drill a lot, a whole lot, and they are as common as recess, lunch, and learning. We have become very familiar with the process when it comes to emergency drills. This very morning, we had a meeting with 3 Columbus police sergeants and another officer in charge of overseeing school emergency drills for Franklin County. And he also works with Homeland Security. And we discussed the Las Vegas incident along with other active shooter incidents throughout the nation. We talked about the new state law requiring all school districts to conduct a full-scale emergency management test exercise, which will include all students as well. The EMT consists of 2 to 3 emergency drills being conducted one after the other. And at the conclusion, the evaluation process will be completed that will define the strengths as well as areas for improvement for each school. All drills shall be completed by December 30th. So we have an aggressive timeline and schedule to complete all drills, making sure that all students and staff are part of this drill. The drills will include all emergency drills such as evacuation, reverse evacuation, relocation, and reunification. And our students will take part in that exercise. Planning has begun for the drills, and as early as next week, we will start with our high schools. Once all the high schools are completed, we'll move to the middle schools and then to the elementary schools. We've been working with our executive directors to come up with the schedule, and as well as our Columbus Police Department, they will be assisting us in making sure that drills are done with fidelity and making sure that we meet all the state standards and guidelines. But during our conversation about the drills, the Homeland Security officer stated that CCS does more than any other district under his direction in terms of drills. We go above and beyond, and we do it quite often. His comments are a true testament of the work that's being done in our district, not just in our department, but across the board, in trying to keep our students and staff safe each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Ward. Are there any questions from board members? We know you can't respond to specific strategies or tactics for obvious reasons, but are there questions from board members? Mr. Vice President.
Yes, Mr. President. this is something more directed to us. I'm interested in convening a dialogue and developing some sort of idea or plan around policies for community safety at our board meetings to ensure that there's opportunity to ensure our safety during these times when we're meeting and convening and conducting public operations and business. I think it's important that we know that the community is safe here, and I believe that they are. But I'd like to see if we can explore other options, other opportunities that give us a better platform for safety, if you will. And again, not to say that we aren't, but I like to see where we can possibly take this type of forum to the next level.
Thank you. Board Member Gibbs.
Thank you, Mr. Ward, for your comments and for that brief report. And thank you, Dr. Good, for bringing this to us. Surely the most immediate events in Vegas have brought us to this point, but way before then and not too long ago, this was Columbus, Iota, and before that it was right outside of Linda McKinley, and before that just numerous incidents, not just in our schools, but in the community surrounding us. So we convened some task groups about this time last year a little bit to talk about and to tackle the violence. What has become of those groups, and are there any formal recommendations from the work we did district-wide that we held at Northland and at the other school? What has come of that work, and are there any recommendations from that first set of dialogue that we had that the board should consider?
I'm going to respond to that one, and actually it's a good question and one anticipated, and I think it might merit, since it has been about a year, actually give a presentation on all three of those committees and where recommendations have been implemented and how we've measured any outcomes that are associated with those different interventions or treatments. So I'd recommend we actually have that at a future board meeting versus trying to recall, from the podium.
Definitely. That was definitely a call for a report out and to let us know. Thank you for that, for Board Member Cole. As you're scheduling the drills, not to leave out 270, not to leave us out. So should anything occur during one of our meetings, we are as prepared as well. And we know that across the country, things have happened in many elected chambers. We have a gun control issue in this country, and I'll say gun control, gun usage, the wrong guns in the wrong hands being used for the wrong things. Not a Second Amendment issue, but definitely people who don't know what to do with their rights. And so I hope that as we're gathering our strategies and our programs, we're also educating young people about how to deal with issues effectively, and that we don't handle it. I know you can't because you're part of the team, but handling our social services and our mental health services in conjunction with what we're doing to prepare, not just for the act, but to prevent them by having strong, healthy kids that feel happy about themselves, and so that they don't turn into adults who have to do these things or feel like that's their only option. So I appreciate all the work you do. And I don't know what Cheryl Ward is, but I know she's amazing as well, and all her work in really helping kids pick up the pieces, because we see what happens, but there's a lot of days and it takes a lot of time to pick the pieces back up and to help both our students and our staff feel safe again. And so we thank everybody in this entire continuum of work.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Board Member Brown.
Thank you. I appreciate the good work that you and your team do and your good work in working with other law enforcement agencies. I certainly welcome and appreciate the thoughts, and we did take some action early in the year with respect to concerns about guns. And I'm happy we did that, and I'm hopeful that other legislative bodies, such as the one in DC, will take that up. However, one area where I think we need to be careful, and that is not to overreact not to go forward with adding security, whether it's to this meeting or elsewhere, without doing a realistic assessment of the threats, the risks. It's one thing to say, let's do all these things, let's put armed guards in the room, we'll all be safer. But the reality is that I'm not sure that whatever risk may be perceived is a realistic risk to take those kinds of steps. I don't want to live in an armed camp. I don't want to work in an armed camp. And I don't want our schools to appear to be armed camps. So I think that, I appreciate the concerns that some of my colleagues raised, but I want to make sure that we do it thoughtfully and when there is, and only when there is a realistic threat or risk to safety and concern, and not go overboard. I'm reminded when I built my first courtroom and I had the opportunity to build out a space. Sheriff approached me and wanted to put up a bulletproof glass between the well of the courtroom and the gallery. And I thought about it, and I didn't like that idea, and it would change the whole feel for the courtroom. And I asked, has there ever been an incident in the courthouse that would warrant that kind of step? The answer was no, clearly not. They just wanted to try it out. So I think that we just need to do this thoughtfully, and I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate all your hard work and that of your team.
Thank you.
No, I will reiterate that, we transport our students and we focus on their safety and security, and we're focused on communication. All of these are business and operation functions under the vision and leadership of our Chief Operating Officer. So I know we don't always have an opportunity to highlight the good work that makes it possible for our teachers and our administrators to be recognized with awards from Junior Achievement. But if we weren't getting them to school and keeping them safe and being able to communicate effectively, those awards wouldn't come. So when we get awards like that tonight, I think it's an award for everyone because we're all stronger than we are independently. I will also thank the community again for recognizing what our faculty and staff told us 2 years ago and what the board placed on the ballot. And they are those individuals that help to build positive relationships and engage students to help understand what motivates them, what causes them to make the sorts of choices they make. So the addition of social workers and nurses to address health needs and our safety and security personnel and those instructional aides who are so valuable in large classes, and the English language professionals that help break down some of those barriers of language, just a number of things that we're beginning to see make a difference that were supported by that levy. So we're very grateful for that as well, because I do agree you could exhaust your resources creating a safe space in infrastructure, but until we actually understand what motivates people and help them to consider other choices that are pro-social, we may continue to have incidents, and pretty soon we'll all be in interesting settings. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Mr. Peretti.
This is real brief, and it may not be able to be answered, but the incident that we did have at Scioto, as we know, it is a school for emotionally and disturbed students. The young man, I thank God that no one was hurt, and I'm very thankful for our staff, even though it's probably not protocol for something like that to happen, for staff to intervene like that, although we are glad that it was diffused in probably the best way possible. What is the status of the young man that, I know he was 18, do we have any idea? Is it something that we're not privy to? I'm just kind of curious because I haven't heard anything about it.
Superintendent.
Well,
is he getting services and help?
He is in the system at this point and getting the services to which he's entitled, both from legal protection as well as other social emotional supports, as well as his educational rights. So all of those are being met. But beyond that, his rights are protected as well. So we really can't speak to it beyond that. But yeah, it's a good question to know that he we believe he's getting the treatment and support that he needs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. All right, let's move on then to our treasurer. Let's move on then to our internal auditor. Madam Internal Auditor, have you anything to share this evening?
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board. The Audit and Accountability Committee met Thursday and voted to release 2 reports. One covered controls over IT, and one covered the results of high school operations and controls. The committee had some suggested tweaks, nothing major, but we have to incorporate their suggestions. And once those suggestions have been incorporated, you all will receive a copy of those reports, and the final reports will be posted on the district's website. It was a brief meeting. I shouldn't say a brief meeting. It was a long meeting, but just had 2 meaty topics on it. So that completes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the Internal Auditor? Board Member Hudson?
Thank you, President Baker. Not a question, and thank you, Internal Auditor Smith. I just want to flag 2 things for the board. First, the IT report is pretty extensive. It's about data security. It's about controls. We are doing a lot, and also we're doing a lot with limited resources. I flag this to say that there are some improvements that are recommended. This isn't about creating busy work. It's not about spending money for the sake of spending money and buying IT gadgets. It's about security that every public and private enterprise has to deal with these days. And it adds to challenges. It adds challenges for administrators. It adds challenges for each and every teacher and everybody that's out there. I think it'll be worth the board to review that carefully, to understand it, and to make sure we, all work together to take these recommendations seriously, because the longer we don't, the more that is built on. And I say that only so that we understand it as a board. I think the administration is taking it very seriously. And we appreciate Michelle Van Dyke and her team and all the work that's been done. And along with the internal audit staff and their outside expert that helped with the report. It's quite extensive and very thorough, and the committee was real pleased with it. The other, I just want to highlight that the high school controls, a lot of this is about the, handling money. It's come from years of comments from the state auditor, or for the state auditor's office. The treasurer's office has been really active with that. The academic leadership from the high schools, as well as the internal auditor's office. It's a great example of collaboration among all of our kind of branches of operation, and they're continuing to work on some great solutions to further limit those comments that we've received on cash handling issues for years.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to very quickly echo the comments of my sister colleague in Ms. Van Dyke's proactive abilities with IT. I mean, just a very, very succinct. They've taken very market standard software and operations and adapted it in such a way to work specifically for us in a way that's almost, that could be patented, could be copywritten for the district. I mean, it's very unique what we've been able to do with very little. And again, to echo it, we want to make sure that we're as aggressive with protecting the privacy of our students, protecting our data as possible, so that we don't have to deal with breach situations, so that we are prepared to engage any kind of cyber issue. But I just want to applaud the administration too for their great work in that endeavor.
Thank you. Any other questions, Madam Internal Auditor?
So I just wanted to add one more thing. One of the recommendations that will come before the board was a suggestion for a IT steering committee, which would put more of a governance structure enterprise-wide for the entire district. So we might have one department, when they roll out a new software change, they might handle it one way. another department might handle it another way. What that committee will do is look at all the different silos that we had and hopefully bring some uniformity to all of it. So a lot of, as Member Hudson said, a lot of good recommendations came from that report, but that is one that you will probably be seeing come before the PRC committee in the near future.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Madam Internal Auditor. Let's move on now and hear from our treasurer. Mr. Treasurer.
Good evening. I have nothing to report.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
It always brings a chuckle, doesn't it?
Thank you very much. We know we'll be hearing from you soon on
yes,
budget
you will.
forecast and other things. Thank you very much. Let's move on then now to the public comment portion of our meeting. We do have one individual signed up to speak this evening on a non-agenda item. Her name is Barbara Clark. Topic: decision process to close the schools. Board action: explain the decision process of closing the schools. Ms. Clark, welcome. Good evening. You have 4 minutes.
All right, good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer Baharik, Internal Auditor Smith, members of the board, and Superintendent Good. I'm Barbara Clark, and I'm a community activist. The 2 days, I want to talk about a lot of the days and the process and the decision-making of closing the schools. I work in the community. I knock on doors in the community. I see a lot in our communities. The 2 days in question, though, you talked about the opening of the windows, the water. Those were great. You talked about the transportation on the bus, getting them home. What about the walkers? We have parents that walk and pick their kids up because so much is going on in the community. With our opiate epidemic, we gave children a chance to experiment, in the 2.5 hours. Of course, we have a lot of great children, a lot of good children who come from great families. But we also have children who sometimes don't do what they're supposed to do. We gave them children a chance to do whatever they wanted to do. And I think that you talked about safety. We need to look at overall safety. I'm just wondering how many children or girls got pregnant that day. How many children smoked marijuana for the first time, and Lord knows what was in it. So we need to look and come up with some kind of process and decision that when we have to close schools, we're looking at all children in all aspects of safety. In the winter months, there's no way our kids should have been out of school all those days. I know the ice is heavy in the morning, but don't let them out the whole day. We need to come together. And the attitude of children, so many children were telling me, I said, what are y'all doing home? Oh, they let us out because it was hot. That was stupid. You got the kids saying that. Sacrifice is what they learn when they got to stay there if it's hot. And it goes on with them, especially in a lot of communities. Parents try hard to get their kids to go to school, but when we send them and you let them come out, it sends mixed messages. So I'm just asking us to come together and figure out how can we make better decisions when we have to close schools or send the kids home early.
Does that conclude your remarks?
Yes.
I want to thank you for being here this evening. I want to thank you for your patience and waiting until we had the public comment session. Thank you very much for the time you took to be here this evening.
I'll get nothing from you guys.
Mr. Superintendent, would you like to talk about any interaction that might have or might happen with the speaker?
Certainly, President Baker, and thanks for coming, and I'm always interested in hearing ideas to make it more safe for our students. There were no calamity days last year, so you must be referring to the year before that, because the students remind me that I didn't call any calamity days last year when I go into their classrooms. You're right, there are safety risks, but when we are clocking rooms at 106 degrees on days like we clocked them last Monday and Tuesday, to me that's a greater health risk than some of the other risks. So we have to balance all of those things.
So that's a greater health risk.
It's 106
Walking
degrees.
home in 106. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we look at all of those kinds of variables. We do the same thing with the snow days. We look at the ice on the roads. We look at whether it's dark. We look at whether sidewalks have been cleared. We look at whether buses are in danger of the diesel fuel gelling while they're running, whether it's been thawed enough to run the bus to begin with. So, and we don't take the decisions lightly. We started deciding this Sunday morning. So versus being in a place of worship, we were gathering together online to make decisions about Monday, checking the buildings to see if we were going to be able to cool them enough to have school at all. And we were, with opening windows, adding fans, the kinds of things you mentioned. And but those temperatures cranked up pretty quickly once you get all those bodies in there. And so we were very fortunate. We had community members that showed up with coolers and ice for the coolers. We had a number of community members that did what we call walking school buses, so they would walk with the students to get them to their homes safely as well. We try to remind our folks, our parents, at the beginning of the year to make certain they have plans when things like this might happen. We're looking at a plan right now. We're trying to see if we can actually do late starts should we have like snowfall that begins during rush hour that would create a risk for our buses to be on the road, or if it appears that snow's coming and we need to wait a little bit to do that. So we're going to communicate that to our families, but we're very interested in working with families, one, to help understand how students can get home safely, but two, we're interested in families supporting future issues that may allow us to renovate those buildings and build new buildings so that they're all air conditioned and heated and we don't have to make decisions like we made this past week. So I appreciate your input. I'm happy. I know that a couple of our staff have called and talked with you, and happy to work with you and think about other ways we could ensure students are safe. But I wasn't about to leave them in their buildings when they were that hot. And the faculty and staff in some cases were in kitchens that were far warmer than the classrooms. So I have 9,000 additional employees over the 52,000 students that concern me on those days. So I appreciate all that you're saying. Thank you.
Are there any other clarifying questions from board members?
Yes.
Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mrs. Clark, for coming today. I greatly appreciate you being here. I greatly appreciate your work in the community. I know it very well, have for years. My clarifying question is to our superintendent. The early release also entailed ensuring that our students had appropriate sustenance for the day. Is that correct? Was that a motivation as well?
It did. The students were out that Friday before for professional development day. So in some cases, with 90% of our families living in poverty, it may be one of the first balanced meals those students had gotten in 3 days. So we wanted to make certain they had the opportunity to get breakfast and get lunch before they were sent home that day and on Tuesday. We also made the announcement mid-afternoon on both of those days, so on Sunday afternoon and Monday afternoon, in hopes that families could work together with community members. And as I indicated in my remarks, we had wonderful partners that opened their centers early as alternative places they could go. But we used every medium you can imagine. We used the auto dialers, we used the social networks. It was on TV. It was even running as a banner underneath the football games on Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening. So we wanted to be certain that families were aware in plenty of time to hopefully find, but there are those families that may have been a difficulty, and when we know where they are, we can kind of customize a solution for them, because we know that one size doesn't fit all in this community. So, and that's where you could be helpful to us as well.
Thank you, Dr. Good.
Thank you very much. Other clarifying questions, Board Member Gibbs?
Just two things. One, thank you for coming to address us. We like to hear firsthand from our community about what concerns them around this. And it's never an easy decision. I just happened to be in Detroit at a funeral last Sunday in Detroit where they did the exact same thing. They did an early release because their students, their buildings were going to be way too hot to have their students there pass. And I think they let out at about 11 or so in a rolling and a rolling dismissal, which made me think, we're not too far off base. We're all thinking about the hottest part of the day and how to still have some learning occur. So definitely thank you for that. But the other part is that if there's ever an idea you want to propose or a better way or how can we come up with a solution, you can send us an email and say, hey, I got an idea. Can we try this? Can you try that? You can send an email to the Innovation and Reform Committee and say, hey, can you guys look at this and come up with some better ideas? So it's not lost on us, because we're very well on any given day, what our kids have to go back and forth to on any given day, what kids can get into. We're in control of the time that we have them, and we have to make the best decisions when they're under our care. And we rely on the community and families to handle that other 18 hours that we don't have them, to make sure they're trying to provide the best environments and support for them. But we're going to keep studying, early dismissals, late arrivals. It's moving 50,000 people and their families and their parent schedules is not easy, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. So we actually still commit, and I'm glad Dr. Good is still looking at the ideas of how to get that done.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Tough decision, but it was the right one. Thank you. Let's move on then to our consent agenda. Is there a motion from one of my colleagues that we... And is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda this evening, colleagues? Questions or comments? Mr. Peretti?
Just want to point out 2 items on Operation Fix. It looks like 2 boilers at Cause and at the Gifted Academy at Everett. Just again, it's something that people can get on our Operation Fix It website, check out and see the promises that we made to the community and how we've been following up with that and making sure that our schools have equitable resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Peretti. Any other comments or questions from colleagues? Hearing none or no additional. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes, but I have to abstain from 8.3, 10.4, 10.5.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you very much. Move on then to Board of Education matters. So I want to talk briefly about a special recognition that I mentioned earlier. Last week, the Ohio School Boards Association held their fall conference. Mr. Superintendent, did you have anything you wanted to say on the consent agenda before we move on? Okay. Last week, the Ohio School Boards Association held their fall conference and awards banquet. One CCS employee was nominated by this board for her dedication to the district and given the Columbus City Schools 2017 Exemplary School Employee Award by OSBA. I want to take this time to publicly recognize and congratulate her. Over the past 4 years, the board and superintendent have taken aggressive steps to transform operations and rebuild the integrity of our data. Much of this work has been spearheaded by Dr. Michelle Klein, Chief Accountability Officer for the district. When Dr. Good became superintendent in 2013, he created the position of Chief Accountability Officer with the position reporting directly to him. He tapped Dr. Klein, who he had worked with in Westerville, to fill this important post. Under Dr. Klein's leadership, wide-ranging controls and procedures have been developed and implemented to ensure the fidelity and accuracy of student attendance and related data. As an initial step in transforming our operations, the district reestablished an attendance and accountability team with a new directive to conduct random quarterly records inspections and review data for any irregularities, with specific trained staff members responsible for monitoring, reporting, and reviewing the key personnel. Clear directives and written instructions were given to principals regarding end-of-year data verification procedures. They're updated and documented with additional training and spot checks. An online attendance toolbox was launched to quickly and thoroughly explain the district's attendance policies, regulations, procedures, and practices. Department of Accountability and other support services, additional data input training and safeguards at the school building level have been implemented, and new systems and policies at the district level are in place to further increase data security. The public now has unprecedented access to district data with the launch of our first ever digital dashboard offering insight into student attendance, enrollment, academic achievement, and even the number of cafeteria meals served each school day, updated every day. An accompanying financial dashboard allows users to see where every dollar into our district comes from and the amount of every check written out. As you all know, our work is not done as the district continues to assure that further safeguards are in place to maintain this integrity and move the district forward with a renewed and growing spirit of trust, accountability, and success. All this work would not have come together so efficiently and effectively if not for Dr. Klein and her team. So it is this board's distinct honor to congratulate Dr. Klein for being named OSBA's 2017 Exemplary School Employee for Columbus City Schools. And as I ask her to come up front to say a few words and then to take a photograph, I've already received a thank you note for us nominating her, and she just gave this to me tonight. It says, "Dear CCS Board, just a quick note of appreciation for nominating me for the award. I felt honored to represent Columbus City Schools and will always be appreciative of our Board of Education. I'm truly blessed to be a small part of a phenomenal team. Fondly, May Show." Dr. Klein, please approach the podium. Just a few words, if you like.
My only word, President Baker, is my team is unremarkable. They are so remarkable, some of the things that they do. And I want to give this a little special shout out today. I had my closing audit meeting with one of our internal auditors today, and I just felt like it's like glue now. We're coming together and we're actually thinking thoughts of each other and making our school system better together. So I want to thank our internal auditor.
That's great. Comments from board members? Board Member Hudson?
Thank you, President Baker. Dr. Klein, I want to thank you so much. I recall my very first ANA meeting when we had a spreadsheet a foot thick of everything that we were working on. Dr. Stanford was presenting it. We went through the very start of what you have done and what the transformation, the collaborative efforts with the Office of Internal Audit and other professionals has been just phenomenal. And I know you have worked so tirelessly to get to this point, and you make it look easy now. But that was monumental, and I can't thank you enough. And I think for the integrity of our district to bring back public confidence in Columbus City Schools, your efforts are so appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's the business side. This is the human side now. I've known of your work and your example, your personal commitment to, I think, what our overall mission is around human development, developing human beings. You've made a personal commitment to some folks in the community where you help provide them housing, where you help give them some steerage, where you've mentored young people and contributed and poured into their lives. I really appreciate that. This is, to me, outside of your seminal achievements with the district professionally, to me, this is where you've, like so many in the district, gone above and beyond for our community and for our children. Thank you.
Other board members? Board Member Gibbs.
Yes. On behalf of Innovation and Reform, of course, but in the entire community, we thank you for your thoroughness, your enthusiasm, from being able to whip up a student survey at the drop of a hat to studying our innovations and ideas thoroughly and systemically, and being able to deliver, not just talk about it, but I can always count on an outcome from you. And in this environment, that is amazing. You are my number one go-to. No one delivers that phone number like you. But what our community knows is that you have created in that Central Enrollment Center a place where things work not on how people feel, but on how the processes were developed. And that provides consistency, and consistency provides dependability for our parents and our community. That is what builds the trust and helps us serve our families and our students well. And for that, I think you are tremendous. Arlington Park's best, and one of the most amazing people. Everyone in this room, you don't see, they look good, but we don't see the thousands of hours of sleep they didn't get, right? And we know that you work seamlessly with every single team in this room, and for that, thank you for keeping us as a board informed and able to say, call Dr. Klein or go see Central Enrollment and know that an outcome will occur. So thank you so much. Well-deserved honor.
All right, let's all gather here at the front of the table for a photograph. This should be our last picture of the evening. Thank you for your service, Dr. Klein. Congratulations again, very well deserved, you and your entire team. And at this point, board members, any of you have any brief announcements you would like to share or points of pride or anything else this evening? We'll start with the Vice President.
Thank you, sir. Two very quick points of pride. I had the opportunity with Board Member Reyes to attend the Battle of the Bands, which was outstanding. Always a wonderful experience. Just very excited about the higher ed representation there as well from Central State, and just the great things that our children are doing with our music program. Thank you for that. In addition to that, had the opportunity to briefly attend Glober Scholars Level 1, the cultural dialogues with the Columbus Council on World Affairs today at Franklin University, where Columbus North International School was participating in that, with Westerville and Worthington there as well. So I was very excited about that. Just another great thing about our students that's happening that we don't get enough fanfare around, but I know that it's paying dividends because I see it working with my own children and their friends. So thank you for that opportunity as well.
And Mr. Brown?
Very briefly, just want to let the board know that Policy Review Committee is getting underway. We've got a survey out to those on the committee looking to be able to schedule, and we've got a lot of work to do, and we're anxious to get started. Secondly, just an announcement, a reminder, I mentioned it, but as part of the host committee for the Girl Scouts Convention, which opened today, and we're going to have Girl Scouts from all over the country here in Columbus from now through Sunday. I looked through the programming, and it is extensive. There is a lot of meat to this and a lot to do and a lot of fun. And I'm hopeful that many of our own Columbus City Schools young women who are part of Girl Scouts will participate. Finally, just a brief note. Last Wednesday, I attended, and I know Ramona attended, the Columbus Metropolitan Club presentation on the future of education. And it featured both our state superintendent of instruction, Paula DeMaria, as well as Annalise Corbin. And it was good, it was interesting, but one of the things that I took away from listening to Dr. DeMaria for that time was that there's an extraordinary focus on technology, on college and career prep, but there's not a lot of attention or time given to other extremely important areas that I know we value, and I'm proud that we value, and that is to make sure we focus on arts and humanities, citizenship, and community engagement. All matters that are important for all of us, but we need to make sure that in these days we also consciously pay attention to those and their importance, because everything else is pushing us to look at technology and career prep and college prep. And I think we can do that.
Thank you. Well said. Board Member Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I do want to talk about the band, the marching band competition. Again, being from Texas, we have 300-piece bands, and I would also say that I want to say that I'm a band geek. It really was very inspiring. Our kids were so excited seeing some of our bands up to 100 strong. The program is building, and I hope that more of our kids are interested in pursuing a band instrument, a marching band experience. I'm appreciative of the additional dollars that went to each of the marching bands. When that announcement occurred, all the kids jumped out of their uniforms. They were so excited, and I'm sure a bunch of them were saying, now we can do this, and now we can do that, and now we can do this. So, and also seeing and hearing the parents talk about their kids who have now also moved to, we had the university, the Central University Band there. So there were parents, they're like, my kid is playing with them, and here's where they started. So we know that our teachers are doing a wonderful job of preparing them for that second level if they choose to go to that second level. So that was very, very exciting. Also have had the great fortune to visit some of our football games. So that's another area where I'm seeing growth. I ask the community to please support our children as they play these sports. I've been to some of our games where maybe we have 5 or 6 parents in the past, and lately I've been seeing an increase of our parental involvement. And we know that when a parent is involved or an adult's involved in our children's life, especially when they're doing something that they love, their spirits, their commitment, their success rises. So I encourage you to continue to come. Even if you don't have a child playing, our kids love seeing you in the stands and wearing your colors, and there's a lot of alumni in Columbus, and I hope to see you there. I see you walking around the community with your colors, I won't call out any schools, because then someone's going to get mad because I didn't ask to say the other 19 or 20s. But please do come and support our children when they're doing that. And with that said, I wanted to talk about a little bit. Our Community Engagement Committee has been working even over the summer. So over the past 2 weeks, our communications and student activities teams, along with many of our principals and athletic directors, have been coordinating to promote the use of our Columbus City Schools mobile app. You might recall the Community Engagement Committee last year started a trend of asking announcers at our home football games to share the spirit of success updates, such as growing number of graduates or record amounts of scholarships. So that's just a way for us to get our news out, and everybody, while we have their full attention at the football games, basketball games, getting news live and important to the district. So we've taken this a step further. At the home football games, the past 2 Fridays, we offered visitors a free box of popcorn or other concession item if they could show they had the CCS app on their phone. So board members Cole and Gibbs, as well as Dr. Good, helped out. Our app promotion really worked well. So on this past Friday alone, nearly 200 new people downloaded the app. So you want to know where schools are closed? Get the app. If you want to know our success and who got the last scholarship, get our app. If you want to know how our students are doing, our demographic, get the app. So over the course of both weeks, there were nearly 1,200 new downloads, bringing our overall rate to nearly 14,000 app users. So we're pretty excited about that. So that's what we're promoting now, and we're on our way to reenact our Kicking It with Columbus City Schools, so we'll bring you more information about that. But please, don't forget to download that Columbus City School app.
Thank you, Board Member Reyes. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Peretti?
Reminder, our Finance and Appropriations Committee will be meeting this Thursday? Next Thursday. All right, that's how we stand here. And we've had to be a little bit flexible with that. I just want to, thank the community and, the changing sort of dynamics that we're dealing with. But we will be looking at our 5-year forecast and our monthly financials. And I encourage our public to attend, other board members to attend, to really see those drivers from the state, what puts us in the economic conditions that we're in, what to expect over the next years, and what that actually means for this district looking out into the future.
Thank you. Any other comments? Board Member Gibbs.
Thank you, and as always, want to invite everyone to join us or send us an idea via the internet for the Innovation and Reform Committee. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, October 10th at 5:30 p.m. at Champion Middle School. Again, Tuesday, October 10th, 5:30 p.m., Champion Middle School. If you have an idea about academics, operations, or governance that you would like to consider, please visit the website and click on Board of Education, Committees, Innovation and Reform, and you'll find a link to send us your ideas and to provide us feedback and suggestions on what you would like us to tackle and to vet on behalf of the district.
All right, if that concludes our announcements, I'll ask the Vice President to offer a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is recommended that the board recess into executive session per section 121.22 G4 Ohio Revised Code to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
And Mr. Brown?
Sure.
That motion carried.
And before we recess into executive session, I'd like to offer the superintendent an opportunity.
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President, members of the board. Sometimes we get late-breaking news, and I like to share it with you first in a public setting when it's something that's really worth celebrating. So I'm actually going to give Dr. Stanford the honor of making this announcement.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Good, thank you for allowing me to do this. I just received an email from Mr. Rico Felix, the student who was a part of the Honor Guard this evening. He just informed me that he received a letter of assurance from West Point to be in the 2022 class. And this is really a unique opportunity for him. My understanding, as long as he keeps his grades up and he passes his physicals, he will be a West Point cadet.
That's great news. That's a great way to end a great meeting. So the board will now recess into executive session. We'll adjourn from that room without returning to these chambers. Thank you all. Have a great evening.